It's the Opperman Report. Join digital forensic investigator and PI Ed Opperman for an in-depth discussion of conspiracy theories, strategy of New World Order resistance, high-profile court cases in the news, and interviews with expert guests and authors on these topics and more. It's the Opperman Report. And now, here is investigator Ed Opperman.
Okay, welcome to the Opperman Report. I am your host, private investigator Ed Opperman. This show is brought to you by Audible.com. You go to audibletrial.com/Opperman Report. You go there, you sign up for free, and you get a free audiobook. Today, we're doing a special live afternoon broadcast available on iHeartRadio and Spreaker.com. But this show will go into our regular rotation of replays on Para X Radio Saturday night. That's CBS, 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Penny Entertainment on Blog Talk Radio Sunday mornings, 10 a.m. Eastern Time. Then throughout the week on Firehorse Radio Wednesday nights, late night in the Midlands, 4 p.m. on Tuesdays. And also High Point Radio both on AM and FM covering New Jersey, bit of New York, and Pennsylvania. Then also the show will be offered to PSN Radio and Wolf Spirit and Talk Superstation and all the stations that we normally play on live on Friday nights. And I'm sure they'll put it into their rotation as well. Okay, now we just had Chris Milligan on, and he's the publisher over at TrineDay.com, the country's leading publisher of suppressed works. And one of his authors is Daniel Estulin. He's the author of True Story of the Bilderberg Group, Trans-Evolution, The Coming Age of Human Deconstruction, The Octopus Deception, Shadow Masters, an international network of governments and Secret Service agencies working together with drug dealers and terrorists for mutual benefit and profit. Okay, and don't forget, guys, okay, it's a listener-sponsored show. We need your donations. We desperately need donations. And you can make them via PayPal at oppermanreport@gmail.com, or you can go to oppermanreport.com and click on the donate button. Or if you want to sponsor the show, if you have an ad, you have a business, a website that you want promoted all around the world, contact us at oppermanreport@gmail.com, and we'll let you in on those low ratings. Daniel, are you there? Daniel, can you hear me? I think we lost Daniel already. Yeah, we did. Okay, we lost Daniel. We'll be picking him up right now in a couple of seconds. We lost our Skype connection. Coming up this Friday, we have, what's his name? Hey, Daniel, how are you?
I don't know what happened.
Yeah, we lost you on Skype, but we are live on the air right now, okay? And I did a little introduction of you, but tell us about yourself. And I know you were just recently nominated for a Nobel Peace Prize.
That's right. About a month ago, a little bit more, for all the work I've done in exposing the elite and the secret plans for global control. And it's quite an honor. I know some unsavory characters such as the United States President Barack Obama was nominated, and he actually won. But, there's some great people who have also been nominated, and I'm honored to be in their company.
Yeah, very good. That's quite an accomplishment. You can definitely be proud about that. Now, I mentioned your books about the Bilderberg Group and stuff like that. What is the Bilderberg Group?
Well, that's a very good question. There's a lot of conspiracy theories out there about what they are, who they are, who they're not. Bilderberg is a private organization which was founded back in 1954. It was founded, actually the first time they met, the meeting took place at the Bilderberg Hotel in the Netherlands. And the whole idea of the Bilderberg meeting is that it was a very important element of the oligarchical structures of the Cold War period. And that in and of itself is a pretty significant factor, because what it meant was that Bilderberg was a vehicle through which private financier oligarchical interests were able to impose their policies on what is nominally sovereign government. So you have these very powerful people. Basically, Bilderberg is Western Europe, United States, and Canada, your former NATO alliance. They, since 1954, would get together every year, once a year, for about a 3-4 day meeting, where a lot of discussions which one way or another would affect the development of policies around the world took place. Now, again, as I said before, there's a lot of conspiracy theories about what Bilderberg is and what it is not, and a lot of it's kind of crazy kind of stuff. But we do have to admit that powerful people do meet in private. They do discuss things which we're not private to, and these decisions that they make on these invitation-only conferences sooner or later become the policy concerns of governments around the world.
Yeah, and when I was a kid, right, about 17 years old, back in the 1970s, I learned about the Council on Foreign Relations and the Trilateral Commission. And I was shocked. Back then there was no internet, of course, and learned about it through alternative newspapers. But we didn't know about the Bilderbergs until just more recently. I never heard about them until more recently. How did you stumble on this?
It's kind of a funny story. 20 years ago, I was having lunch in Toronto with a friend of mine who was in the military intelligence, over steak and potato lunch, this kind of a surreal conversation that you'll remember for the rest of your life. He was telling me about this private organization. They were called Bild or something or other. It sounded, I don't know, German, Dutch, Belgian, and allegedly he was telling me what was going to take place 3 years into the future. And according to him, in 1995, Canada was going to be split up into English and French-speaking parts. And I said to him, why would that happen? And he said, well, because some very powerful people in Washington needed to balance the budget. Well, the conversation had this surreal tone to it for about another half an hour. And, it was always sounded really, really kooky. And we had lunch and, we said our goodbyes, and that was the end of that. And then 1995 rolls around, and suddenly all these individuals that I've never heard of, and you've never heard of, no one has ever heard of, because there were nobodies up until that day, these people, spokesmen and women for some, peepsqueak extremist party from, Quebec, which is one of the provinces, French-speaking provinces in Canada. They were on television getting primetime, news slot. And then some guy from the extreme right-wing Nazi party, in Canada, the Reform Party, no one has ever heard of. He'd get like primetime televisions, on CNN or CBC, which is the equivalent of CNN in Canada. And then before you know it, this would be like February, March 1995, suddenly all this material about the referendum, Quebecers wanted out of Canada. They wanted to form their own country. Bill Clinton and all these other individuals were, also parading and postulating and posturing about, what should be done. And then I kind of thought to myself, if presidents and prime ministers are really powerless in this big, universal game of smoke and mirrors, and you have these characters who know stuff that's going to happen 3, 4, 5, or maybe 10 years into the future, I thought to myself, if this guy who is the president of the United States, who's supposed to be the most powerful job in the world, has no idea what's going on around him, who the heck runs the world? And that's how I kind of got into this, investigation into the Bilderberg. I wasn't the first person. I mean, there's several other individuals. Jim Tucker, he died a couple of years ago. He was been at it since, early 1970s, and before him, Spotlight magazine, kind of an extremist American magazine. But the point is, what happened with my book, The True Story of the Bilderberg Group, and why it became such an international mega bestseller, is that I made it kind of cool to talk about these kinds of stuff, because everything I talked about, I brought and showed and delivered documents and photographs, and I dug deep and, found sources. And before you know it, it's like, people started talking about Bilderberg as, it was like, end all and be all of conspiracies. What is true, when you're looking at who attends these meetings, from European or Canadian side, every president, every prime minister, every minister of finance, at one time or another has belonged to the Bilderberg groups. The United States president doesn't attend, but he's always well represented by others. And so the group's objectives really haven't changed since the first meeting back in 1954, which is the destruction of nation-state republics, countries, in other words, at the expense of international financial control. In other words, the creation of, I wouldn't say one world order, a new world government. You hear a lot of these kinds of terms, but rather the idea of one world company limited. In other words, corporations that have a lot more power than any government on the planet. And that's, I guess, what what Bilderberg is, but then again, what they do and how they do it and how they meet, it's logical if you think about it from a point of view of powered elite, whose idea is obviously to hide behind the veil of secrecy all their misdeeds against the rest of humanity.
But your first source, the first person that tipped you off about this was military intelligence?
It was a friend of a friend, basically, a friend of my grandfather's. You know, at the time, because I didn't know much about this kind of stuff, and I didn't believe any of this stuff was possible, as most people don't. And this is what happens, I guess, to a certain point. When you start telling people things you don't see on television or you don't read on the front page of a newspaper, initial reaction is, I wouldn't say surprise. It's, that's, tweak in their eyes, and you can tell that, they're just playing you for a fool.
Yeah, they think you're crazy, yeah.
And most of the times what happens is because, the media has convinced us that what's on the cover has to be the truth. And so people always tell you, well, what you're saying is exactly how it is. Why isn't it on the front page of New York Times or Washington Post, the Time magazine? And I guess people don't understand that the mainstream press forms part of the world's elite, and they're part of these organizations, which is why, you have the CEOs of New York Times, Washington Post, and Time, and Newsweek, when it was still a magazine, and CNN and Fox, and ABC and NBC, and all these other channels, and the Economist magazine, and all these papers from Europe, and they all attend, and they're all members, and they're all privy to these discussions, but it never gets out into the press because they're sworn to secrecy, because they form part of this conspiracy, because again, the media drives the dialogue, and it pushes the dialogue through into our psyche. And that's why you have so many games being played, on a particular level, and in society. And that's why the elite can get away with it, because media, the fifth estate, has no intention of getting stuff into the press, because their owners, their shareholders, and the people who run these major, corporate media publications, they're formed part of this, military-industrial complex. So you could never hope to get any of this stuff out. And if something ever does get out, it's because the media itself, being New York Times or whatever, they have to get a little bit of information out. Otherwise, they themselves will lose credibility, and that's something, that they cannot afford to do.
Okay, but you've been consistently getting information out, like secret information about what's going on in these meetings, right? Now, who are your sources, and how are you getting this information?
Well, I've developed sources over the past 20 years, and one of the reasons I was able to develop sources that the Bilderberg structure, out of the 120, 140 people who attend these meetings, you have select governing circles, finance, establishment, media. They kind of commingle with leading figures of the private and financial oligarchy. They kind of sit down and off the record decide all this kind of stuff. But very few people who actually attend these meetings understand that there's a structure, organized structure behind these meetings. And most of them, they kind of come, they listen, they've been asked to come, because you can have some, a very specific knowledge which they need, to put forward their plans, being on economic issues, being on a particular issue, being scientific material, or, an expert in the Middle East. So they come in, university professor, for example, and they give their opinion, they give their report, but they don't understand there's a structure behind it. And this, of course, is used, to further their plans. And the point is that a lot of these people, once they realize what goes on, they look for ways to get this information out. I mean, they don't do it themselves. I mean, they don't go to the press and get this out into the open, because one of the things about Bilderberg is, like any meeting with powerful people, you're talking about Rockefeller, Rothschilds, and Kissingers, and Zbigniew Brzezinski's, and you have these very, very powerful millionaires and billionaires, investors, etc. It's it works on networking, so it's always enticing for these people to come in, talk to them, because once you're there on the condition that you keep your mouth shut, the doors are always open. You can always pick up the phone and get in touch with any of the individuals who participated in these meetings from this year. And so people who participated want to get this information out, on so people can actually understand that there's dangerous kinds of group gatherings. They don't dare do it themselves. They look for ways to get information out. And one of the reasons is, I'm being the person of choice for some of these individuals. I'm not going to tell you how many people I have several, and nothing, that actually comes out there unless I get, multiple source confirmations. I don't ever publish it because I'm always afraid, to be discredited by them. You know what I mean? So, just because the information is presented, because it's very level-headed, and because everything is backed up with, just oodles of documents, and there's a paper trail from here to, Peking, and photographs and conversations. They feel comfortable getting this information out. They know it's not going to be put out in a way which will discredit, their work, and also discredit the fact that it's a very serious and very dangerous organization. This Bilderberg conspiracy, and I can give you examples of everything from the financial. Economic collapse, housing crash 2007, to oil price going to $100 a barrel. It was 30. I nailed that right on the head on the date and everything. And the gold price going to $1,000 a barrel. That was another thing that we also nailed on the head. But the point is that if you kind of look at these things, and I can give you some very precise examples. For example, from some of the latest meetings that took place very, very recently, and the things that they talk about, it's terrifying, because sooner or later you realize that this kind of stuff becomes reality, and it makes its way into the media and becomes part of public debate and national policy. One of the last things that these people talked about is fiscal austerity. They discussed it at this year's Davos meeting, which is it's I guess the first important meeting of the year. And this information is discussed at Davos, because if you kind of look at a year, and I'm trying to make it, because I know a lot of people don't know anything about Bilderberg, and they're wondering, what the hell I'm talking about. But you have to understand that although these secret meetings are very important, there is no eminence grease. In other words, you don't have four old geezers sitting in a dark room holding hands, sitting in some basement, staring at a crystal ball, planning the world's domination. The world doesn't work like that, and nobody who's got 2 cents worth of brains would ever think that's how it works. What happens at these meetings? Again, it's not just one; it's a series. All these private meetings, be it Davos, which just took place in beginning of February in Switzerland, trilateral commission regional meetings, Americas, Europe, and Asia, meet 3 times a year, or Council on Relations, semestral meetings. Then you have, they take place like in April. Then in April you have G7. In May, early June, you have Bilderberg. In September, you have International Monetary Fund, World Bank. Then in October, you have trilateral commission Asia, and between Council of Ministers of Europe, you have senators and ministers and and prime ministers and presidents meet with their advisors. And then you have, again, at the end of the year, you have other important things. And in between, you have so many other kinds of organizations and think tanks and foundations, from Hudson, Hoover, and Ford Foundation, and Carnegie, Rockefeller. And they all meet, they all participate in these private meetings like Bilderberg. But there's no one individual who leads these meetings. But the decisions taken at one, like, for example, Davos at the beginning of the year, they kind of get passed on to, meetings such as the Trilateral Commission, Council on Foreign Relations, Bilderberg, G7, and before you know it, as I said before, they become, the policy decisions of national, international governments and international organizations, International Monetary Fund, or World Bank, or European Central Bank, or Federal Reserve, and before you know it, you have the President of the United States proposing it to Congress, and before you know it, Congress is, threatening to veto it, and before you know it, President goes, on television and says how important it is for, social welfare. Before you know it, it becomes part of national, international policies in Europe. And one of the things you'll be seeing a lot of late, over the next few months, is exactly what we just talked about at Davos, which is a very kind of nasty, dangerous term. It's called fiscal austerity. It may sound innocuous, in a sense that people saying, well, it's probably because politicians, are going to try to get money because they're going to. No, it's not that at all. Fiscal austerity, if you're the elite, basically is a term which refers to cutting social spending and increasing taxes. That's what fiscal austerity is for the elite. And the effect that this has is that the public sector is devastated, as all sectors are privatized, public workers are fired in mass, unemployment becomes rampant, and then you have health and education disappear, taxes rise dramatically, and of course currencies are devalued. So they take money out of your hands, to make sure that all the assets are cheaper for international corporations and banks to buy up, while internally on a national level, all the stuff causes inflation, which dramatically increases the costs of everything, be it fuel or food, which means you have less money, even more so. And basically, in short, the fiscal austerity implies social destruction as the social foundation of nations, and peoples are pulled out from under us. And this kind of stuff they call sterilization of society. And these are nasty terms. Sterilization of anything is nasty, but when you're talking about fiscal austerity, the way I explained it, and sterilization of society, nothing good can ever come with it. And so these are the kinds of things you're going to see at these meetings. You kind of bring it out into the open, into the press, see people's reactions, play around with it, get them to polish it off a little bit, get them to have better acceptance in the media or amongst the publics. They have the focus groups talk about this, and so again, and before you know it, it becomes palatable and everybody accepts it. Right. And before you know it, fiscal austerity and sterilization of society just destroyed your family, and that's how these things work.
Okay, now at Bilderberg, you said before that there's only about 150 members that show up to the meeting every year.
It's actually it's actually a lot less. It's about 120, 125. And again, it's Western Europe, United States and Canada, and it's your former NATO alliance. And out of those, big countries like, for example, the United States gets about a third of the delegates, and then big European nations such as France and Germany and Italy, England, they would get maybe 6 or 7 delegates each, and then smaller countries like Portugal and Spain and Belgium and Greece, they'd get you always have some guy representing the media, probably the most important media group, who's going to be probably the chairman or the president of the company. You're going to have an important politician representing the government, and then you're probably going to have an industrialist, billionaire or millionaire or trillionaire who's going to come to these meetings. But what's important about these meetings, no one tells anyone what to do. It's not like somebody orders you, which is a lot of the times you hear people talk nonsense. Bilderberg ordered the president, and of course people don't believe that kind of stuff, because how does Bilderberg order a president of the United States, has the biggest, most powerful army in the world, to do something? People just don't buy this kind of stuff. So unless you explain it to them that anything that actually goes at happens at the Bilderberg meeting, it's all done through consensus. And the idea is to reach a consensus which further the objectives of these people. And if you can understand that, then suddenly this stuff becomes understandable, and it's important for people to to understand how this stuff works, because it's a very important meeting. And as I said in the beginning, the reason it's called the Bilderberg meeting is that the first meeting took place at the Bilderberg Hotel in Oosterbeek, on the outskirts of Amsterdam. And it was actually held at the Bilderberg Hotel because at the time it was owned by the Dutch royal family, who were, of course, Nazi. And I guess that's the biggest scandal part of the whole Bilderberg conspiracy, is that the organization itself was heavily populated by people who came out of the old World War II Nazi apparatus, and who basically cleaned up and dusted off and deployed to become hardcore anti-Soviet elements of the Cold War, structures in the West.
Let me ask you a question. Now, what about countries like Cuba, Venezuela, Gaddafi from Libya when he was around? Are they allowed to attend, or they're just totally shut out?
Well, again, Bilderberg is NATO alliance, so
right.
These countries wouldn't have anything to do with these meetings. Also, it's like-minded individuals, so anybody who is totally against them would never be allowed to attend. They would not be invited. You get, for example, people from the left and the right, from the Republican and Democratic parties. You get senators, congressmen. You may even get people who represent the unions and stuff. Because again, the whole idea of these organizations is try to reach consensus. But if you take it, somebody like way out there in left field, they'd never get invited. So Castro was never invited. Right. Gaddafi was never invited. But not only that, I can even tell you that the guy like Silvio Berlusconi, who is one of Italy's wealthiest people. He was prime minister forever, and he's got personal wealth. I think, I can't remember right now, $30-40 billion. Well, he was never invited to these meetings because he's a nationalist through and through, and they deplore nationalists at these meetings, because the idea is to destroy sovereignty of nation states and create this pan-world government And again, some people refer to it as one world order, new world government, or whatever you call it. It's not that at all. It's the idea itself of what Bilderberg is one world company, limited corporations that have a lot more power than any government on the planet. This is something which was also discussed at Bilderberg meetings, going way back to 1968, when George Ball, under Secretary of State for Economic Affairs with JFK and Lyndon Johnson, he gave a presentation in '68, and the title was Internationalization of Business, where he defined what the new Bilderberg policy of globalization was going to be, and how it would shape the policy of this international new world order, which he called, one world company limited. And if you kind of go back and see what you have today, where governments really don't govern, presidents don't preside over anything. Right. It's all done by this supranational, corporate interests. It's amazing, and it's also scary if you kind of go back 60 years. It's like 50 years ago. These people said, we were going to do this, and they did it. They did exactly what they said they were going to do, and they did it, very calmly and coolly and collectively. And if you kind of look at globalization, that's exactly what this is, because, beginning in the 60s and in the 70s and the 80s, the United States and the rest of the world literally was taken over by this rash of mergers, this ever larger consolidation of industrial companies, of agricultural companies, of financial companies, and they were slowly building these giant cartels to the point where, you see today these giant cartels which control the resources of the world and basically run the world. And, you have the bankers who run the corporations. And so this whole world company project, in a sense, is a return to the old days of the British East Indian Company with a more modern, face. And that's, the scary part, again, is that they did exactly what they said they would do, and it took them 50 years, and here they are.
Okay, so you got these 120 representatives, right, roughly. Now, and you describe them as being ruthless, okay, ruthless in every possible way. Now, they must have their own security forces, their own intelligence operatives. So it would seem to me that it wouldn't be that difficult to if people are leaking information to you, to plug up that leak. If there's only 120, 130 people, to plug up
it's not that it's 120 who come every year, the same people. You have the inner structure, the inner circle, which could be 12, 13 people, and 15, 20 people who come all the time, like the Kissingers and the Rockefellers who've been there since the beginning. Right. You have some people who come almost every year, but a lot of the people, majority, only come once. They're invited. They have a look at you, they listen to what you have to say. They take you for your presentation. You're well treated, and off you go. And then if you have some political ambitions, you might be invited back, and they kind of have a look at you again, and maybe they'll put you in a position or where you can do something with yourself. And if you don't, they'll just discard you like an old shoe. But the point is, it's most people who come there only come once, or come once in a while. But everyone who comes at least once. Kind of to keep them at arm's length, but close enough you can control everybody. They all get access to to general notes of every discussion, every Bilderberg meeting. So whatever is discussed this year, even though I might not have come because I was invited last year and not this year, I'll get a general summary of maybe 10, 12-page summary of what otherwise would have been a 75, 80-page report. So I always know what's going on. So Gotcha. This kind of information, the people who have attended, be it 5, 10 years ago, they still keep getting all that stuff, And so these are the kinds of people who pass us this information. And I've published a lot of this stuff in my books, and because the information is always the same, and we wanted to make sure that there's no watermarks or things that they can just discern one participant from another, but it's it's just standard photocopy for everybody, the same photocopy. And so we've gotten a lot of these documents and deliberations into my books, and which is again when the true story of Bilderberg came out 10 years ago, this year 2005, it became an international bestseller almost immediately, and now it's the book is published in 67 countries, has been translated into 42 languages, and in 5 continents. We've had over 200 covers written about me and my book, and over 5,000 articles on book reviews and stuff on Bilderberg and in periodicals around the world. Because, as you said, people don't know that this kind of stuff existed, and so much so that Fidel Castro was the president of Cuba for so many years. I don't care if you like him or you don't like him, because in the end, Castro is a legend. He's been in politics for 50, almost 60 years, and he's met everyone from presidents of the United States to to Rockefellers of this world and to billionaires, so it doesn't matter. But the point is that he loved the book so much so that he invited me in 2010 to Cuba. He wanted to meet me. He was so curious to meet me, because he said, there's a lot of things that didn't make sense to me over the years until I read the Bilderberg book, and then I suddenly all that stuff made sense.
Okay, you met Castro.
Yeah, that's what Castro said.
But no, you went to Cuba and you met with him.
Exactly. If you want, if you want to go to, you can go to Google and see the photographs. Just type in Estulin, Estolin, Castro, and you can see all the photographs in Google. And so much so that when Castro actually invited me, it became like trending topic for about 2 hours. And Time Magazine Online in August 2010 had me on the Castro and my book on the cover of Time Online edition, and so that was like
that is
one
very
of a
cool.
kind experience.
I'm Cuban, by the way. Okay, we're gonna have to take a commercial break, but we're with Daniel Estulin, Estulin. His website is danielestulin.com. I have links to all his books: The True Story of the Bilderberg Group, Trans-Evolution, The Coming Age of Human Deconstruction, The Octopus Deception, Shadow Masters, an international network of governments and secret agencies working together with drug dealers and terrorists for mutual benefit and profit. Now, we're going to take a little commercial break, and we'll be right back after this with more of Daniel Estulin. And what I want to hear about his meeting with Castro for sure. Okay, we'll take a little commercial break.
You're looking for essential oils? Stop by. Stop by and check out Essentially Tammy on Facebook. She is Young Living Essential Oils Independent Distributor. These 100% therapeutic grade oils help support the body's natural functions. You can click on her website posted on Essentially Tammy, that's T-A-M-I, to see the current deals and check out the benefits of oils such as frankincense, joy, valor, lemon, thieves, panaway, and many more. Email Jocko Tammy, that's Jocatami @yahoo.com, or call 352-239-8546. That's 352-239-8546. Hey, don't forget good old Amanda at Pacific West Bamboo. Pacific West Bamboo, 503-839-8126. You can reach her at demroots@oppermail.com. Pacific West Bamboo, your number one source for timber, construction, and craft-grade bamboo poles, plants, products, and more. They specialize in eco-friendly reclaimed wood products for the home and garden. They're located in Portland, Oregon, servicing the Northwest for over 10 years. They can be reached at 503-839-8126. That's 503-839-8126. Her Facebook page is Pacific West Bamboo. They can and do ship nationwide, and they're currently getting a new line of bamboo flooring, veneers, and laminates made from Guadawa bamboo, one of the world's strongest bamboos, grown and produced and manufactured in Central America using only economically and environmentally friendly practices and standards. Good old Mike Ray at infinityhomeplans.com. Check out Infinity Home Plans and Design Services, your resource for 3D and 2D draftsman services. They offer a multitude of products, including stock home plans, 2D digital drawings, 3D models, renderings, and more. That's infinityhomeplans.com. Hey, don't forget emailrevealer.com. That's my website, emailrevealer.com. And we offer all different kinds of services. Current place of employment locate. Let's say you're trying to locate where your ex-husband or your ex-wife is working so you can collect on child support. You contact us, we can locate their place of employment for you and help you collect on that child support. Let's say you think that your husband or your wife is cheating on you. Give us their email address and we can trace it back to online dating websites and dating services. So we have a multitude of services on emailrevealer.com. Hey, don't forget the New World Mexican Women. Okay, now you just Google New World Mexican Women. You can find their book where they first describe their love letters to their men and their sons and their uncles and their brothers who have traveled from South America to North America to work as migrant workers. But the women down in this town there in Guerrero, Mexico, they want their men to come back. So they've written these beautiful love letters, and they've put them all in this beautiful coffee table book. First, the letters are written in Spanish, handwritten. You can see pictures of the people writing the books. And then it comes on after that, and it's typewritten in English. And then also, too, the second half of the book is teaching you how to make authentic Mexican jewelry from these New World Mexican women. You can find their book on lulu.com. It's only $19, or you can download the digital edition for free. That's New World Mexican Women, and it's a two-part book where first part is the love letters, and the second part is the making the handmade jewelry, the authentic Mexican jewelry. But you can also contact them too as well if you want to get a deal on wholesale jewelry from Mexico from these women.
Welcome back to the Opperman Report. I am your host, Private Investigator Ed Opperman. We have here today with us Daniel Estulin, Estulin, from danielestulin.com. He's the author of The True Story of the Bilderberg Group, Trans-Evolution, The Coming Age of Human Deconstruction, The Octopus Deception, Shadow Masters, an international network of governments and secret service agencies working together with drug dealers and terrorists for mutual benefit and profit. You can find all the links to all those books on the Opperman Report blog. Now, Daniel, you were talking about how you met Castro. Now, he flew you down to Cuba?
What struck me is the fact that Cubans are not at all anti-American. If anything, they love the United States, and they like the culture, and there's all this animosity, which is fake animosity, which is allegedly Cubans show towards America. It really doesn't exist. And I had a 3.5-hour meeting with Castro. I spent a week there as his guest, and I can tell you that. And I told the government that I said, Comandante, I said there's a lot of great things in Cuba, and I'm not defending the the state, which is there's a lot of poverty and a lot of really awful day-to-day situations that people have to deal with. But there's stuff like for example, there's the Chernobyl Center where all the kids who are over the past since 1986 or victims of the Chernobyl nuclear accident, they are they live in Cuba, they live in Havana with their families, their schools there, they get free healthcare and the free education. And I talked to a lot of the parents, the Ukrainian and Russian parents, and they said, had it not been for Cuba, their kids would have been dead. And they've been there since 1986, and this is a country that has absolutely no money. Yeah. People are very, very poor. The government is not doing very much to solve the situation. But the point is that they still found this enough humanity to look after these kids, because in the end, what are we if the kids are our future, and if we can, it doesn't matter where you're from. It really doesn't. Kids are kids, and I tell you, there's over 20,000 children who've gone through that Chernobyl Center, and it's just something. It's awe-striking, and and so there's a lot of stuff.
Castro was not aware of these international globalists and these corporations.
He was aware. I'm sure he knows exactly who these people are. Cuban intelligence is top notch, but he certainly didn't know anything about Bilderberg Group. And
really,
and somebody gave him a copy of my book, and he he in that newspaper, Grandma, he wrote a long piece about it, and then that got a call from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and they said, would I like to meet Fidel Castro? I said, is it like a theoretical question?
Yeah, right.
And they said, we can make it happen. I said, well, okay, make it happen. And so I spent a week there, and I did a lot of stuff, and met a lot of people, and they try to push their propaganda, and of course it doesn't work, because I'm not going to fall for it, but some things need to be said, and again, there's some amazing things going on in Cuba, and Cubans as people are amazing people.
Well, let me ask you a question. Now, a guy like Hugo Chavez from Venezuela, now when he met Barack Obama, like he gave him like a fist bump. Now, is that out of naivete that he thinks that he doesn't realize that there are forces that are in global control?
Of course they do, but the point is that these organizations, such as the Bilderberg Group, for example, until recently, they were secret. They're not private, and they're not secret in the sense that it's not some kind of a secret society.
Right.
Secret societies work on much higher levels of secrecy. But Bilderbergers and Trilateral Commission, Council on Foreign Relations, and Pinay Circle, they're conveyor belts. And in the 50s and the 60s and the 70s, Bilderberg was a much more powerful organization than it is today, primarily because the people who attended these meetings, these people were born at the beginning of the 20th century, or even at the end of the 19th century. So they were made of of different cloth than the the individuals, the baby boomers. And so you had pound for pound people who had something to say, and when they talked, everyone else listened. And today, it's not nearly like that. And also the fact that my book came out 10 years ago. It just, everyone knows everything about Bilderberg, and so much so that they even have their own webpage right now, Bilderbergmeetings.com. Needless to say, they're not going to tell you anything important. But the point is, the secret is out. And I don't want to take all the credit because, as I said, there were people and organizations who did a lot of, hard work, legwork in the 60s and beyond. But, my book made it cool to talk about it in the mainstream press without, being looked at as a kind of a conspiracy, not a paranoid, schizophrenic.
Well, let me ask you this, okay? Now, since you're releasing all this information, right, do you receive threats or harassment?
Well, back in 2003, when Bilderberg was met in Versailles, in France, I had a couple of emissaries, and I discussed it, and I talk about it in the True Story of the Bilderberg book. They came to me and they offered me a blank check, basically, to take a hike.
Right.
And I kind of looked at the check, and I twirled the pen in my hand, and I kind of said to the guy, I said, you got to help me out. How many zeros is one's freedom worth? And, he kind of looked at me, askance, and he said, have a good day, Mr. Estulin. And, I kind of gave him the check back, and he said, no, you can keep it as a memento. And then maybe about 2 years later, a friend of mine who was a banker in France, because, the check was from a French bank, he said to me, he said, do you have a magnifying lens? I said, no, I don't. He said, get a magnifying lens. I want to show you something. So we went to the store. We got a magnifying lens. And I kind of looked at the check and I almost fell over. In tiniest, print, which is not visible to the naked eye, you could see there's phrase in the phrase in that check. It basically said, you build the world order one brick at a time, the bottom up.
You're kidding.
That's what it said. I'm not kidding. And I have the check at home. And, these are kinds of mental games that, this friend of mine who works in a French bank told me. He said, imagine everybody, you get a checking account and they give you checks and you sign checks and you don't even realize that, if you kind of look at it with a magnifying lens, the world, elite have all these, funny things written on it, which basically tell you what they're doing to you.
Yeah, right. Yeah, right. They're tuned into something that we're not,
They're certainly tuned into something that we're not. And, the idea is that to try to tune into it yourself. And once you understand how these societies work, it makes it easier to understand how things work around you, And it's important because, again, there's so much disinformation, so many games are being played right now, so many different levels, that, they parade all this individuals with very impressive curricula who are certainly not representing us, the people. And a lot of the times people don't understand. They ask me all the time, how is it possible, that the Rockefellers and George Soroses and, the American citizens, and they're doing things that are against the interest of their country, or they're against the interest of their own pocket? And they don't understand that, for example, one of the reasons that we're seeing what we're seeing on the in America, the deindustrialization, demand destruction, zero growth. Detroit is a good example of that. I don't think anyone in their right mind will agree that, Detroit should look like that, or any city in the world should look like that. It's something that you see in a Hollywood zombie movie, post-apocalypse, that kind of stuff. And the fact that you see this, people have to kind of understand that the elite who have a lot of money, if they wanted it to be different, they'll make it different. But the fact is that it isn't what it is because they want it to be like that. And the reason the Rockefellers of this world want Detroit and everything else to look like that, because that's the prototype for the rest of the world, is because progress and development of society is very proportional to population density. So if you have progress, you've kind of extrapolate the thought. If you have technology, you have development, you're going to have more people, more mouths to feed. And if that's the case, because we're running out of food and water and natural resources,
right.
And then for the Rockefellers of this world to eat, most of us have to die. Otherwise, they are going to die because there's not going to be enough for everybody on the planet. So what they're doing is they're deindustrializing the world, because if you can destroy technology and destroy the industry, you're going to get to a point in this, extrapolating the development of humanity, where you're going to have so many people on the planet Earth that you're not going to have the technology necessary to actually support this population base. And that's when you're going to have the collapse of the population base. And that's what they want. They want the collapse of the population base. And people say, well, that doesn't make sense because they're billionaires, they're capitalists to make money. Well, they're capitalists, but they already control the entire planet Earth. So more than capital, they need to make sure that they survive. And survival implies deindustrializing the world and making sure that they survive at our expense, which is why we see what we see. And the games we see right now, for example, with Russia and China and kind of on the world stage, you have to understand it not as a separate phenomenon, it's part of this global game being played against humanity. And the reason that after Russia, not because Putin is a bad guy, a killer, no, but because Russia and China are the only nations in the world who have the technology, the manpower, and also the strength, military strength and industrial strength, to stand up to NATO alliance, to stand up to these, supranational, elites who want to control the world from behind the scenes. And that's why you see what you see, because if Putin changed his stance and, joined the alliance and basically, sell his country to the elite, then he'd be Democrat and, he'd win Nobel and everybody would love him. But because he's defending his national interests, which is what every country should do, defend the national interests of their nation state, is I don't know, anything but a Democrat, dictator. Are you stuck?
Yeah, I had a question in my mind, but I got distracted for a second. Okay, we're getting down to the last 13 minutes, so I know that you want to put together a film, a documentary, right? And you're trying to raise money using crowdfunding. How can we help you with that?
Oh, that would be very good. Thank you very much for bringing it up.
Sure.
The true story of the Bilderberg Group is actually the first film to be based on a book. Usually documentaries are not based on books. They're based on people, on events, but not on books. And this is, the first documentary which is based on the book. And, we've had a couple of false starts. About 5 or 6 years ago, an American producer, actually a well-known American producer, really wanted, he read my book and he loved the story, and, he went to Cannes and he sold the story in Cannes, and, they loved it there. And he came back and, he wanted to produce the documentary in the Bilderberg Group, and we got into it. We were still in the process of writing the script, and then he pulled out of the project because he started getting phone calls from people late at night, basically telling him to cease and desist.
Sure.
And so if you're not used to this kind of stuff, it's disconcerting, especially a family. And so that was the first time, and then the second time, about 3.5 years ago, a producer in Europe who was a very well-off man, he wanted to put it together, and he said he didn't care about the consequences, and he would deal with it, and no problem, etc. Except that if you believe in conspiracy theories or coincidence theories, that is, 3 banks called in his loans all on the same day, and he lost it. And Bob's your uncle, and so we were back to square one, and we had recorded. We've gone to 11 countries to actually interview people and record stuff, and went to Spain and Portugal and Italy and Greece and the United States and Canada and Germany and France and Belgium and the Netherlands and England, et cetera, et cetera. And we had a lot of this great material which was recorded, when the second producer was, in the game. And then when he lost everything and he was out, we said, we're not stopping now. So we put over $200,000 of our own dollars, $1,000 of our own money to actually finish the film. And we're about a month away.
Did I lose you? We might have lost Daniel. I don't hear him. And we're down to the last 9 minutes. Ann, can you hear? Oh, yeah, we got a Skype problem. Oh, boy. We got a Skype problem, but we were probably still on the air on Spreaker.
Yeah.
Oh, you're back. Yeah, we lost you, man. Yeah, as soon as you started talking.
Well, I was like Bilderberg, saying enough of that. And as I was saying, that so we've recorded the stuff in 11 countries. We have spent over $200,000. Now we need about $20,000 to finish this documentary. So we've started this crowdfunding campaign because we kind of are running out of funds. And if you have a little bit of money, be it $5 or $10 each, if we get like $10 dollars from 2,000 people, we're a long way off to getting this thing finished. And go to Rocket Hub, type in Bilderberg, or type in my last name, Estulin, Estulin, and donate whatever you can. You get some nice prizes to go along with it, and certainly it's a great initiative. Not because I'm making this film, but because in the end, as I said to Castro, I said, Comandante, how do you understand immortality? And he started talking to me about Marx and Engels and Lenin, and I kind of looked at him funny, and I guess he realized that he wasn't talking to some Cuban, and countryman of his. And so he said to me, "Okay, well, how do you understand immortality?" And I looked at him and I said, I think immortality is it's the idea of assuring the survival of the species. And what we're playing right now, what's at stake, is the survival of humanity, and against the supranational elite who are gung-ho to destroy the rest of the world, to survive themselves. And I think it's an initiative not only on a personal level, which of course it is, but also on a supra, I guess, international level. Because when I do these kinds of things, I don't very much think about myself or my own well-being. And if they kill me, they only can kill me once. I can't do it twice. And so whatever happens, and I've already earned a little piece of immortality in the sense that everybody knows my books, and everyone who wants to understand how things run has read it and have passed it on to others. And it's about survival. It's about survival of humanity. It's about making sure that the future is brighter than it is our future, which is it's a terrible state the world is in. So if we can do something for our children, it'll be a great way to do this, be it this film or any other initiative where we're doing something for the planet Earth. So again, if you can help, Rocket Hub, type in Bilderberg or Estulin, and help us out if you can.
At Rocket Hub, rockethub.com.
Exactly.
Okay, I'll put that up on the blog too as well, so people can go to the Opperman Report blog and find the link for that. Now, we covered over about there being they tried to pay you off, right? And they've threatened people around you. Now, what about infiltration? Have you had people like trying to insert themselves into your life, even in your personal life, that are like operatives for these kind of people?
I have, but again, if you understand how things run, if you're careful, it's difficult or next to impossible to infiltrate your life, if you're vigilant. And I just on the Skype, I just sent you a link
right.
to the documentary. So yeah, of course they have. They've tried everything from alleged girls who wanted to meet me to
right.
To journalists who wanted to investigate with me, to help me out, to people who wanted to give me tips, to people who wanted to sell me hot property, which you could smell it a mile away. It's just the way it's the way that this kind of stuff works. And you can always if you're careful, if you've been in business for a while, and I've been doing this for 20 years, you can smell this kind of stuff a mile away. And also for example, there's certain things that I do, certain rules that I follow. As for example, when I travel, I only have my carry-on, and it never leaves my hand.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it's like I don't ever check anything because I'm always afraid that they're gonna put something in my bag, be it drugs or a dead body or whatever. So I only travel with with my carry-on. It never leaves my sight. I always keep it close to me, and so far so good. The one time that I can't remember what year that was, like 2004, 2005. I was checking in. I wasn't checking in. I was, getting a ticket, at a checkout or check-in. And when I kind of turned around, I had a feeling that my bag, my handbag that I kind of left there, facing me, it was kind of, facing the other way. Now, I might have been mistaken, but because I'm very careful with this kind of stuff, I just walked away from it. I have my pouch where I have my passport and my, my documents and stuff. But, whatever little clothes I take with me, I just kind of left it there, just walked away.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because, don't take any chance. And if I need something, when I get there, I buy it. And it works out cheaper to buy yourself a pair of pants or, buy yourself a T-shirt or a shirt than spending a year in prison because, they put something in your bag and then go prove that they didn't.
Right, yeah. And the airport's a perfect spot to grab you, too, because they got a little jail. Every airport has a little jail. You guys should know
Well,
this.
yeah, that little jail, sooner or later turns into a big jail. I was initially, especially, when I started investigating, when I became a little bit known, but not as famous as I am now, I'd get interrogated every time I, cross borders, and every time I go to a Bilderberg meeting, they'd have my photograph.
Right.
And now it doesn't work because, it's like, my book is in so many countries, and, I'm nominated for Nobel Peace Prize, and I have done, speeches at the European Parliament. I met Castro. I gave speeches to the Joint Chiefs of Staff in Venezuela. I met, Czech President Klaus. I gave him a speech on European integration. So I met very important politicians and leaders around the world who are fascinated with this stuff and fascinated with what I do. So, if anything, it works in my favor if I get arrested. People say, wow, he got arrested, so it must be true what he's saying. But
there's some more books too, right?
It does. I try to stay away from this kind of stuff because anytime you talk too much sensationalist nonsense, you always attract, the kooky, wacky individuals that I try not to attract to my entourage.
I totally, I can relate to that. I know exactly what you're talking about.
People ask me about, UFOs and,
right.
These people have some, greens or oranges. I don't know anything about it. Maybe they exist. I don't know, but it's not my line of work.
Right. Yeah, I know. And it seems to be, they make a big lie, to distract from the real truth. Now, what about you? Also have a radio show or a TV show you do every week?
Yeah, it's a show in Spanish. It's called Desde la Sombra in RT Russia Today, and we recorded in Moscow, and it's the highest Spanish language TV show in the world. We have over 7 million viewers per episode, which is a lot of people. It's not Super Bowl numbers, but 7 million people for current affairs interview show. It's a lot of people, and we talk about everything from pedophile scandals to drugs, Bush family, P2 Masonic lodges and Vatican and Opus Dei and American penal systems, all the kind of stuff you'll never see on CNN or anywhere else for that matter. And RT is one of the premier alternative media sources in the world, and certainly doing well as an alternative information outlet for what you hear in the mainstream press.
Well, next time you go on there, plug the Opperman report, okay? But let me ask you a question real quick, because we do a lot of pedophile scandals as well. What do you think of this Jeffrey Epstein case? I've been doing a lot of work on that.
It doesn't surprise me in the bit because, I've done a lot of investigation, and I'm a very, very close personal friend of Nick Bryant, who wrote a book on the Franklin scandal,
sure.
Which is an amazing, shocking and terrifying book. And I saw his interviews, in which he, conducted documentary stuff, and it just, makes you sick to your stomach. But again, I asked him, I said, Nick, why do these people do this? I mean, they have everything, billionaires. They can have anything. They can buy women, buy the most beautiful world.
Yeah. Why
do they want to do this to children? It's because it's a forbidden fruit. It's one thing that they can't have. And so these garbage, this scum of the earth, they feast on children because that's what they are. And it's an epitome of evil. And again, Prince Andrew the British royal household. I have no doubts he's involved. I have no doubts that American top tier politicians are involved. Just as Nick Bryan demonstrated that the Bushes and the Kissingers of this world were very much involved. In the French.
Yeah, you're breaking up again. I have Nick
Bryan in Omaha, Nebraska. This stuff is not just America or England. It's everywhere.
Yeah, I have Nick Bryan coming on in a few weeks. Oh boy. Yeah, the Skype connection is really bad. I have Nick Bryan coming on in a couple of weeks. We're down to like the last minute, and my Skype connection.
You're there for a second.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, we're really getting broken up here. With Daniel Estulin, we're down to the last minute anyway, and I want to promote his rockethub.com, and then you go to projects, and you just type in Bilderberg, and that'll pop right up. And I have a link to that. We're going to put that on our blog. And I also want to. I can't even communicate with Daniel at all right now because we're cut off.
I'm here.
Oh, you can hear me? Okay, good. Yeah, because Jeffrey Epstein, by the way, real quick, he's a member of Council on Foreign Relations and a Trilateral Commission.
Of course he is. I mean, unless you belong to these organizations, it's you have to. All the perverts in the world belong to Council on Foreign Relations, Bilderberg, and Trilateral Commission.
Yeah.
And again, there's come a point in time where there's a lot of us, and there's few of them. They're very powerful, but we have safety numbers, and we can win this war.
I agree too. Yeah, we totally outnumber them. We have to resist. We have to resist with everything that we have in our bodies every single day. We can't stop. Daniel Estulin, I cannot thank you enough for coming on. Okay, I'm gonna beg you to come back in the future when we have more time.
Absolutely, anytime you want, just let me know.
Thank you very much. Is there anything you want to leave us with real quick before we go?
I think again, it's the most important thing you can do is turn off television. Think independently, ask yourself questions, and question everything around you. Everything. Don't take anything for granted, and that's how you develop independent thinking. This is what the elite are afraid of, when people begin to think for themselves.
Next time you go to Cuba, bring me with you, okay?
Okay.
Thank you, Daniel. Okay, God bless you, my friend. Godspeed. Okay, now we had Daniel Estulin, man, fascinating guy. He wrote all these books about the Bilderberg group. If you want to call in, let's take some calls. We might want to do like a little half hour if we get some calls to call in, our regular callers. I know not too many people are listening in right now because we're not live on any of our usual networks. But we had tonight Daniel Estulin, Estulin, and he's the author of The True Story of the Bilderberg Group, Trans Evolution, The Coming Age of Human Deconstruction, The Octopus Deception, Shadow Masters, an international network of governments, secret service agencies, working together with drug dealers and terrorists for mutual benefit and profit. So he's covering all the same kind of stuff that we cover here every week, week in, week out. And he's dealing with the same kind of stuff that we deal with as well, some kind of harassment. And we don't get that kind of bribery offers. We haven't had that yet. Come get me, man. I'm pretty desperate over here. But we got all the threats. We got all the infiltration. We got all the other stuff that seems to come with the territory of the kind of stuff we're trying to expose. And I joke around about taking a bribe, but I guess we're not going to do that. But we do desperately need your donations, okay, at oppermanreport@gmail.com. You have no idea how desperate things are. We have so much opportunity to get things going here. We need sponsors. Last week, again, we were number 3 on TalkStream Live, which is like right after Savage, right after Michael Savage. We're like number 2, number 3. So you can pick us up there and have your ads read on the show live. You can sponsor the show in all different kinds of ways and help us out and get this kind of information out there. This week coming up, we have Dave McGowan. He's going to be speaking about the moon landing hoax. And then Sunday morning, I'm going to be a guest on the ignorance equation with Nick Katsouris. And we're going to be talking about police brutality and all these recent events about this man who got killed on the street just this week in L.A., And it's just amazing how the police were called to the scene because he had tipped over another man's tent, And just the fact that we have people living in tents in the street should be enough to cause a revolution in this country, you would think. But the fact that we have cops showing up and then killing people over these kind of incidents is just outrageous and intolerable, and something that we should not be submitting to in any way, shape, or form. Well, I'm really sick. I got a fever and a cold. But the only time we can get Daniel was this afternoon because he's calling from Spain. Now, if you want to call in, we'll take your calls, 702-605-4894, 702-605-4894, and you can Skype us at ed.opperman if you want to call in with a comment or a question, or you want to call in with a donation. We'll take that, no problem. So what we'll do is we'll play some ads. It's a nice little 5-minute ad, and we'll take a little break. And if we get calls, we'll continue the show. If we don't, we'll just say goodnight, and we'll see you. Oh, by the way, tomorrow I got coming on, Reverend Pinckney is going to be calling in from prison and giving us an update. What we're going to do with Reverend Pinckney is, because he has to use the payphone in prison to call us up. So we're going to start recording those calls. We're going to take the calls in the afternoon. We'll play them live here on Spreaker, on iHeartRadio, and then we'll play them on our shows and put them in rotation on all our stations. What we'll also do is we're taking another call interview tomorrow with a woman, fascinating woman. She runs an organization that helps to men that are in prison, men and women in prison and on death row and stuff like that. Her name is Kelly Banaski, Banaski. She has a blog, and she has all kinds of information where she's talked to Richard Ramirez in prison. She's talked to Drew Peterson. There's a lot of stuff going on with Drew Peterson right now. He's being charged with trying to assassinate the DA who prosecuted him. So she has a little information about that, where she's contacted him and written back and forth. And we're going to be talking about that tomorrow, right around this time. Okay, I'll let you know in the morning. You could tune in. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to play some ads, and hopefully we'll get some phone calls, 702-605-4894, or you can Skype at ed.opperman. If we don't get any calls, we'll just say goodnight, and we'll see you tomorrow this afternoon, around the same time. And we'll be talking to Reverend Pinckney and this woman, Kelly Banaski. Okay, so let's take a little commercial break, and we'll be right back after this.
If you're looking for essential oils, stop by and check out Essentially Tammy on Facebook. She is Young Living Essential Oils Independent Distributor. These 100% therapeutic grade oils help support the body's natural functions. You can click on her website posted on Essentially Tammy, that's T-A-M-I, to see the current deals and check out the benefits of oils such as frankincense, joy, valor, lemon, thieves, panaway, and many more. Email Jocotami, that's Jocatami @yahoo.com, or call 352-239-8546. That's 352-239-8546. Hey, don't forget good old Amanda at Pacific West Bamboo. Pacific West Bamboo, 503-839-8126. You can reach her at demroots@oppermail.com. Pacific West Bamboo, your number one source for timber, construction, and craft-grade bamboo poles, plants, products, and more. They specialize in eco-friendly reclaimed wood products for the home and garden. They're located in Portland, Oregon, servicing the Northwest for over 10 years. They can be reached at 503-839-8126. That's 503-839-8126. Her Facebook page is Pacific West Bamboo. They can and do ship nationwide, and they're currently getting a new line of bamboo flooring, veneers, and laminates made from Guadawa bamboo, one of the world's strongest bamboos, grown and produced and manufactured in Central America using only economically and environmentally friendly practices and standards. Good old Mike Ray at infinityhomeplans.com. Check out Infinity Home Plans and Design Services, your resource for 3D and 2D draftsman services. They offer a multitude of products, including stock home plans, 2D digital drawings, 3D models, renderings, and more. That's infinityhomeplans.com. Hey, don't forget emailrevealer.com. That's my website, emailrevealer.com. And we offer all different kinds of services. Current place of employment locate. Let's say you're trying to locate where your ex-husband or your ex-wife is working so you can collect on child support. You contact us, we can locate their place of employment for you and help you collect on that child support. Let's say you think that your husband or your wife is cheating on you. Give us their email address and we can trace it back to online dating websites and dating services. So we have a multitude of services on emailrevealer.com. Hey, don't forget the New World Mexican Women. Okay, and I just Googled New World Mexican Women. You can find their book where they first describe their love letters to their men and their sons and their uncles and their brothers who have traveled from South America to North America to work as migrant workers. But the women down in this town there in Guerrero, Mexico, they want their men to come back. So they've written these beautiful love letters and they've put them all in this beautiful coffee table book. First, the letters are written in Spanish, handwritten. You can see pictures of the people writing the books. And then it comes on after that, and it's typewritten in English. And then also, too, the second half of the book is teaching you how to make authentic Mexican jewelry from these New World Mexican women. You can find their book on lulu.com. It's only $19, or you can download the digital edition for free. That's New World Mexican Women, and it's a two-part book where first part is the love letters, and the second part is the making the handmade jewelry, the authentic Mexican jewelry. But you can also contact them, too, as well, if you want to get a deal on wholesale jewelry from Mexico, from these women.
Okay, well, welcome back to the Opperman Report. I'm your host, Private Investigator Ed Opperman. Don't forget this show is brought to you by Audible.com. You go to audibletrial.com/Opperman Report. Get yourself a free audiobook. And, you sign up for free, get a free book, support the show. Well, we didn't get any calls. And I'm not too surprised because, we are, this is a new time slot. We've never been on live this time before. I really haven't promoted it. But I can see that we have quite a few listeners. What we have coming up is Friday, our normal time slot, Friday night on awakeradio.us and PSN and Talk Superstation and the Sovereign, Scottish Sovereign on the Land. And Wolf Spirit Radio and all these stations that were normally live on Friday nights. We're going to have good old Dave McGowan's coming back. Very popular guest. People love him. And we're going to be talking about the moon landing hoax. So that's this Friday coming up, okay? And don't forget, tomorrow, too, we're going to be doing something around this time as well with the woman who talks to the prisoners in prison, and also the Reverend Pinckney's going to be calling us from prison. So a little prison-themed episode tomorrow that we're going to edit together with tonight's show, which was only an hour, and then we're going to put it in rotation with all the different shows. Coming up after that, the next week on the 13th, we have a New York City NYPD retired detective who does a New York City crime scene tour. And he does one of those bus tours in New York City. And we're going to be talking about the John Lennon assassination, about hits that went on in Little Italy, all kinds of stuff like that. That's coming up with him. We got Nick Bryant coming on. We just talked about Nick Bryant before with the Franklin scandal. We have him coming on as well. So, and this is it for tonight's show. I'm going to thank you all for joining us. And we'll see you tomorrow. Right around this time, we'll be talking to Reverend Pinckney. So, have a good night.